We're back with Siaran Khas Prn Sabah Hari Pengundian right here on Bernama TV. Jessie Chahal, Gerard Ratnam taking you through the next 45 minutes or so as we speak to guests on our program as well as experts on the matter related to the Sabah elections.
LIYANA MARZUKI joins us once again, former senior federal counsel at the Attorney General's Chambers and also political observer right now, so we need to be very careful as to what questions we put forward to her.
Absolutely. Now, we've been here behind the scenes as well, keeping up with the latest developments. As of 1 p.m, slightly earlier, 45% voter turnout has already occurred or happened. That's more than 1/3 of voters having completed their voting process. It's 3 p.m. at this point of time, and the polling it's in its final stretch, and it will continue for a couple of hours till about 5:30 p.m. with centres closing in stages beginning 12 p.m.
Yeah, just to give you a heads up, we'll be speaking to Dr. HARYATI ABDUL, senior lecturer and researcher in Borneo Electoral Studies and Geopolitics, or GeoPES, at Universiti Malaysia Sabah. She'll be joining us via Zoom, and we'll be speaking to Associate Professor Dr. ROMZI ATIONG, senior lecturer at the Universiti Malaysia Sabah Centre for the Promotion of Knowledge and Language Learning, who is also a political analyst. And we'll do you one better. We've got the commissioner from the Election Commission joining us, Zoe Randawa. She's going to be joining us via phone, and we'll get her take on what the Electoral or the Election Commission has to say with regards to Sabah's big day out right here on Bernama TV.
That's right. What we hope to do in the next hour or so is to unpack Sabah's big day out, look at the voter turnout, as well as what's on the ground, the sentiments, and what to expect as the results window draws nearer. As mentioned by Gerard, we do have the Commissioner of the Election Commission of Malaysia, Zoe Randawa, to give us a little bit of an insight as to what is going on the ground there. So we walk us through a little bit of what's happening there. It's Sabah's first election with Undi 18, and from the field, how prepared do these younger voters feel? Are you picking up on any sentiments, and what's really shaping their confidence or hesitation in participating and in voting today?
Hi, Jessie. Thank you so much for having me. So far, as of 2 p.m, voter turnout is actually trending only slightly lower than in 2020, which shows that young voters are actually coming out to vote, and it's an improvement compared to elections that have happened after Undi 18. So it seems that young voters for this election are actually politically engaged and aware of their democratic rights. And this could be down to targeted campaigning by candidates, but it also reflects the continuous voter education work that the EC has been doing in schools, universities, and on social media. But it's also, for most polling stations, there are still a couple of hours to vote. So for those young voters maybe just waking up this afternoon, please check your details on my SPR Semak and head to your polling station.
Zoe, Gerard here. The Election Commission has deployed a full operation in Sabah now. What are you seeing in terms of process efficiency, voter flow, logistics and accessibility, especially in the more remote districts? Zoe?
Yeah, so another positive trend that we've been seeing today that's really helped voter flow has been the majority of candidates and supporters aren't actually campaigning today, especially around polling stations. So this is giving voters the space to get to their polling stations without being obstructed by supporters or pondok panas. But the EC has also added more polling stations compared to 2020 to cut down waiting times. And we've seen that a lot of our election workers, like presiding officers, have experience from the federal elections just 3 years ago. So things are still quite fresh in their minds. So things like queue management and the speed of the voting process is much faster. And this also could be helping the high voter turnout that we're seeing.
Well, results are to be known as early as 10 p.m. today, perhaps. And we also understand that the EC will be using helicopters to transport out ballot papers from about 85 remote areas. Now, Zoe, every election in Sabah comes with its unique challenges in terms of the weather. We are in the midst of a forecast of a storm as well, connectivity and distance, of course. What has worked well this time, in your opinion, and where do you see some gaps that really can be strengthened as we move forward?
Yeah, so that's exactly the case. It has been a big challenge with the heavy rain that we've had this past week, but we have been working very closely with agencies like NADMA and Met Malaysia to prepare for all possibilities and eventualities. So there's close collaboration at the constituency level as well. For example, this morning in Papa, I was talking to the returning officer. A tree had blocked access to a polling station, but last night he had already met with all the local agencies to prepare for just that case happening. And so they were all on standby and they could remove the tree and still open the polling station in time. So this really close collaboration and early preparations has really worked for us. In terms of connectivity as well, the EC has made sure that we've got internet connections to all of our polling stations, even in the most remote locations. So with this internet access, all of our presiding officers can be in communication with our returning officers and also with HQ. So communication has improved a lot. And then, just like you mentioned, to account for distance and terrain, we have invested heavily in different transportation types, like helicopters, boats, four-wheel drives. And we also send all of our election materials quite far in advance to these remote areas. So in case of any poor weather or roads being blocked, give time to make up.
Well, Zoe, thanks for that update as well as sharing with us exactly what's going on there. And we wish you and the team all the very best. Indeed, it will be a long day and there's much left to do. Thanks for speaking to us.
Thank you very much. That was Zoe Rendawa, the Commissioner with the Election Commission here in Malaysia. LIYANA, let's get back to you. And I guess there's just so many things to be spoken about or that we need to understand about Sabah. And I think for the better part of the first half of the show, it was a bit hard for you because you're always doing podcasts and you can take your time to air your thoughts. Now we're just going to leave it to you. And I mean, where do we need to take this conversation as we wait for the results to appear later on this evening? There's just so much to talk about, and we keep talking about a 14-corner fight. We keep talking about the cliches, but I guess there's also a lot within this conversation that needs to be had, and you've been having a lot of conversations with regard to what's happening in Sabah and also the politics in Malaysia. Where do you want to start this afternoon's conversation?
I think the major issues, what is the concerns of the Sabah when you talk about Sabah for Sabah and state-centric, what that actually means to Sabah. And I think that is the most pertinent to be discussed. For example, their 40% entitlement revenue, and also the second part of it I think is more towards political education. What happens if there's minority government or no one can form the majority later on? Who's going to be CM, the chief minister? I think that is the conversation we need to push out there so that the voters and electorates understand the political scene. Right,
so understanding this whole process.
Yeah, you mentioned the 40% on the oil royalty issue. That, of course, has also been a trending conversation in the weeks leading up to the Sabah state election. Now, even with payments now that are already being scheduled with regards to the 40%, there are many questions over whether the past or current allocations are truly reflective of the 40% entitlement. Should the next government commit to a full open book, transparent accounts of these funds?
Well, I think the main issue is actually transparency. They stopped the payment in 1979, some said because the Petroleum Development Act, and started back in 2021. So the case that was taken by the SLS Sabah Law Society was actually for the purpose of asking what happened within that dark era, that period from 79 to 2021, and that that blank out period, that whether it's from part of petroleum royalty, was it part of that Article 112D of Federal Constitution. So you can only address that through open book and transparency, and that's what I wrote on Facebook. You have to show to the people whether it was paid, whether it's not, and where did the money go for all these years, right?
But having said what you've said, we also need to take into consideration that PMX is trying his level best to engage and to also disseminate as much information as which is available with regards to the issue, don't you think so?
Yeah, I think the complexity, because it's still in court for deliberation. There might be prejudice issue, subjudice issue on it. There have been a decision made asking federal and state to negotiate, in good faith. But I don't think a lot of information out there for the Sabahans to understand the whole issues. A lot of propaganda, a lot of, like I said before, it can be a boogeyman, this issue to bait the voters emotionally. If this,
so which means this is a thing happening within the state itself.
Correct. And I think if you use this issue, it's a legacy issue, not this current government or the current federal government or state government. It's a legacy issue for the past 50 years. And if we discuss it with reason and facts, it can unite us because we want to move as a nation. If we discuss it through emotional, through propaganda, it will polarize us. That's the concern.
Well, unlike many other elections, the identity of the chief minister will still remain uncertain. Who are the likely those who are perhaps standing a good chance to be the next CM, and what qualities will matter most to the voters as they further on decide?
I think the competition now is between the local parties, because that's the message and narrative close to Sabahans now, and it's between GRS and also Warisan. So it's between Datuk Sri Hajiji and Datuk Sri Shafiq Abdul. In terms of the who's going to be the CM, it's not necessarily mean you are the party to have the biggest win and translate that you automatically become CM, become CM, because at the end of the day, the battle is who will have the magic number of 37 majority by the assemblyman. And I think in terms of qualities, first I think is credibility, how to negotiate with federal. Number two, to provide stability within the coalition. It will be 4 or 5 blocks negotiating for that coalition. And lastly, delivery on the development and basic necessities. I think that 3 elements that being the criteria for good CM.
We haven't asked you this. What are you particularly hoping to see come out by the end of the day?
I was always promoting unity government since 2020. I think we the progress and development of the nation has been hindered because of political instability. It would be good to see that all come together and form unity government at a state level.
When you say instability, give us some context.
You see Sheraton move, what's happening when you have that infighting within coalition and infighting between coalition that merged together, forming up another big coalition, and everyone want to be CM and PM. We have 4 ministers for the last term.
Right. I mean, we've learned a lot from it.
We learned a lot from it.
Yeah,
so I think the moving forward is to provide unity and stop this political infighting.
So it's very
instability.
interesting that you talk about the Sheraton move. We've learned so much from it. Even chess aficionados and chess professionals want to name one of their moves the Sheraton move. Having said that, you say a unity government. What would a unity government in Sabah look like? Given all the players we have, everyone's thrown their hat in the kitchen sink in to want to be part of government or to want to run Sabah. I mean, just with what we saw with the 14-cornered fight, 73 constituencies, there's a long trail of independence behind the big boys. How do you see a unity government forming there?
For me, I'm very idealistic. Unity government, to me, we have a government without opposition, where everyone work together, and it's not unique only in Malaysia. I mean, it's not something new. We have that in UK last time. You had that in Indonesia when Jokowi asked his opponent to be part of the cabinet and become holding a big portfolio such as defense, and they move forward together because everyone is not fighting for power. Everyone fighting to build the state or nation together.
Well, we look also at, what we were discussing a little while earlier, voters may expect some sort of consistency between federal and state. Does this split then further confuse voters, or does it expose deeper mistrust among the partners moving forward?
I think politics in Sabah is an animal altogether, different animal altogether compared to Semenanjung. They are very civil in nature. I think they have experience before during PRN 16 where Warisan has the biggest number and someone else became the chief minister, but at the end of the day at the federal level they form up as part of unity government. So I don't think it will confuse Sabahans because they get used to it. And the mistrust among the coalition partners, I think they always accept the fact they have competitive cooperation. They will fight and they will compete at the local scene, but for the sake of
stand as one.
Correct, stand as one when it faces federal government. And it's good for Sabah because if you have Warisan also part of federal government, meaning their constituents and their rakyat can be taken off because of the federal allocation. And it's good for Sabahans.
Right, we're now joined by Professor Dr. ROMZI ATIONG, Senior Lecturer at UMS Universiti Malaysia Sabah Centre for the Promotion of Knowledge and Language Learning. Prof, thanks for joining us. Of course, it's Sabah's big day out. From your observation, what are some key factors shaping voters' sentiment this time around? Are people prioritizing economic concerns? We've had a long discussion here in the studio about infrastructure matters, water supply. Could it also be about governance issues or just identity or autonomy matters?
Hiya, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I've been on the ground since 2 weeks ago, and I found that on your questions. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Apology because I do have this problem with my internet connection, but voter sentiment is shaped primarily by economic pressures and service delivery concern, and it's followed by distrust in governance and leadership stabilities, and identity and autonomy still matter. I can see that, but they now operates as a secondary filters rather than dominant drivers of electoral decision making.
Very quickly, Pakatan Harapan is fielding only 22 candidates, far fewer than Warisan or Perikatan Nasional. What does this indicate about PH's strategy and assessment of its influence in Sabah at this point?
PH limited slate of 22 candidates suggests a pragmatic, targeted strategies focused on winnable seat and coalition cooperation rather than broad contestations. It reflects Pakatan Harapan recognitions of its relatively modest, I can say, grassroots machineries and influence in Sabah, prioritizing strategic leverage over what I can say is widespread but potentially low impact participation. I think that's a reason, sir.
Well, Prof, Pakatan Harapan and BN have historically been rivals, yet they are now coordinating machinery in Moyog. From a strategic perspective, how do you see this? Does this cooperation strengthen their position, or does it risk, again, confusing voters who still see the PH-BN as the opposites?
Well, thank you for this. Good question. Well, on my view, I'm of the opinion that the PHBN corporations in Moyog exactly offers organizational strengths and pool resources, while potentially improving their competitiveness. However, there is a big however. It also risks confusing voters who still view them as ideological rivals, creating doubt about authenticity and coherence. The strategy success depend on whether voter prioritize practicality over long-standing partisans' identities.
Pakatan Harapan and Barisan Nasional have historically been rivals, yet they are now coordinating.
Right, I think, just moving further from that as well,
Yeah.
PH has outlined so far 7 guiding agendas, including administrative reform, accountability, youth development, and even high-value industries. How do these agendas now align with the broader political trends we're seeing that's going to help to shape Sabah's narrative? What we understand from the outside here, Prof, is that the sentiments of the people are that they have a government that is transparent, that is accountable, and that will bring to fruition these long-term aspirations and hopes.
Indeed. PH 7 agendas mirror Sabah's broader shift towards governance reform, youth empowerment, and economic diversification. As voters increasingly prioritize competence, transparency, and high quality development, I can see that Pakatan Harapan focus aligns with this expectation and positioning the coalition within a narrative that values institutional integrities and modern, future-oriented growth over traditional patronage politics. So I think that's how it.
Right, Prof. The line doesn't seem to be very good, but I know we've got so many more questions to ask, but I guess we'll try to get in touch with you again later on this evening and get your thoughts on what's happening right there in Sabah. Thank you very much for being on the ground and for also sharing with us all your thoughts. Some great gems that we're going to discuss in studio at this point. Now, I guess with all that we're hearing, I think simplifying the message for those in the peninsula and also those not living in Sabah, especially for friends in Sarawak who probably understand the situation there more, and friends in the peninsula. Where do we begin with this? We're doing a lot of analyzing, and sometimes the depth of the analysis kind of passes over our head because we don't quite understand what's happening there. So from what he said, how do you break it down? Like what he's telling us earlier.
I think that's the most obvious. He tried to see there's a changing of mindset on how Sabahan view politics. He said that no longer identity, logo, label politics. They really want track records and also delivery, dependability on that government to move forward as a state, and I think that's healthy. And for Semenanjung and Sarawakians, we see that from Sabah, and it should be a trailblazer for us moving towards PRU 16.
Right. So I guess before we take a quick break,
Yes.
we need to understand something that Jesse may want for me to sit somewhere as a policymaker or something, but whether I have the capability to understand policies is another thing. We'll come back and talk about that.
Absolutely,
we'll take
Gerard.
a quick break. We'll come back.
Thanks
and
for getting
discuss
my eye signal. We've got to take a quick breather. We'll be right back. A lot more to discuss and unpack here. It's the 17th Sabah state elections. We'll be right back.
Thank you very much for staying with us right here on Bernama TV, Sabah's Big Day Out. Very quickly, just to give you a heads up, later on this evening, Wan Sharina is going to be on to take you through the results as it comes in right here on Bernama TV. We'll be having some subject matter experts in the studio. She'll be together with Taufik Rahman, of course, breaking down the results for you and giving you information as we move along throughout the evening. That'll be spliced with some interesting news bulletins with a lot of information coming all the way from Sabah. If you're into long reads, go to bernama.com. In the meantime, joining us is Dr. HARYATI Abdul Karim, Senior Lecturer and Researcher from Borneo Electoral Studies and Geopolitics, or GeoPES, Universiti Malaysia Sabah.
Dr. Haryati, thanks for joining us. 73 seats are up for grab with 37 needed to form a government. As we zoom in, some analysts are of the opinion that this particular election is seen as a moment where younger voter participation is going to shape the future of the state. With issues like, or rather basic issues like amenities, employment, internet access, cost of living and housing. These are areas and topics being frequently discussed. Which do you think it's really going to resonate with the younger voters this time around?
I think it has to be with cost of living, because if you're talking about young voters that will be like somewhat under 40, they may be somewhere in the early stage of their career or at the intermediate, so they'll be maybe earning about 2,000 to maybe 3,009. That is actually the most average income level earned by young Sabahans working in Sabah. So at the same time, the cost of living is extremely high, particularly like say food. Food is very expensive in Sabah. So, if I go shopping, I've observed how average Sabahans will be spending their money on their groceries. They really cut down. So we could tell it has something to do with their purchasing capability. It has something to do with how much they earn. So when we talk about young people, definitely cost of living is really a reality that's very hard to bite for them. As I said, they were earning something like maybe 2,000 to 3,000. And at the same time, they had to spend a lot, rental. And if some of them are married, they have young children, nurseries would cost around 400 to 500. So if you're earning something like 2,400, you pay nurseries to send for your kids, and that's how much that's left. And then you have fuel to think about, and then you have to pay for rent for your home, and food is extremely expensive. So naturally, young voters are very anxious that what can the government offer to address problems of spiraling cost of living. Having said that, the next issue will be employment, job opportunities, because the problem with that in Sabah is that a lot of our graduates having difficulties in getting jobs that's commensurate with their degree qualification, because we don't have much companies that's offering salaries that is commensurating with the degree. So that's why you see a lot of young Sabahans moving to bigger cities like Kuala Lumpur for a better job offer. It's basically economic reasons that they're moving to, say, Kuala Lumpur or even Johor or even Malacca for a better life. And so the cost of living, job opportunities, it is quite limited, and housing. A lot of my former students who have worked something like 10 years, so they're in the mid-30s, they complain they still cannot afford to buy a house because house prices here is something like 400K, and if you're earning something like 2004, would there be any bank that would allow you a housing loan with that kind of income and the house prices? So at the end of it, what happened is that they'll end up renting a house which is quite a distance from their workplace, and so that will be how it will be like. They spend a lot renting outside, and after 10-20 years of working, they are still not able to afford to buy a house. So these are the core issues that are affecting our young voters. And the last is also at the most recent is about basic amenities. My students are complaining problems of water disruption. It has gone to a point that it is quite critical in Sabah, that they're really hoping when they want to vote that these problems are resolved. So it's like water, road, electricity. These are the basic amenities which they think should be handled and resolved by the government. So these are the things that they're looking out. Whoever is in power, they're hoping for these list of issues that I'm telling you. This should be addressed adequately.
Now, there's a perception that social media, especially TikTok, plays a major role in influencing youth voters. However, your research indicates that on-ground engagement still matters deeply to Sabah's young electorate. What makes face-to-face campaigning more meaningful and impactful to them? I hope this is a valid question.
Sure, of course. Thank you for that question, actually. Okay, we have to understand, when we're talking about young people, some of them are actually digital natives. That means they're born into the technology, and social media is their food. They've already dabbled with it earlier than us. So they actually already know what TikTok is really about. You know, when I was interviewing them, a lot of them were telling me they really question TikTok's the credibility of the information. How genuine are those information on TikTok? Because for them, TikTok should not be used for campaigning. It's actually for entertainment. Because that's why they go on TikTok. It's fun, okay? It's funny. But if you're going to use it for campaign, they have more questions to ask. So they rather have something like non-mediated communication approach, such as ceramah, okay, a public debate, which gives them the opportunity to get a clear sense of who these candidates are. You see, a lot of these young people, they don't know these politicians, they don't know the candidates. Their knowledge about our political development is still raw. So how do they make decisions? By just relying on TikTok itself, it's not enough. So when they want to make that first step in voting, okay, as a citizen, they really want to be very, very sure that they know what they're voting for. So it helps if they get to know and get to see the candidates in person, which will then give them a clear idea, you know, the quality of the candidates that are campaigning, that is actually contesting. Another thing, my informants told me that it would be better if TikTok actually educate them as first-time voters how to vote. What I mean is that they don't know what is an SPR. They don't know that they actually have to check the daftar senarai pendaftar pemilih. Yeah? They don't know that. This is their first steps toward voting. So they say it will be very good if actually maybe political parties use TikTok to facilitate, to help them, to educate them what are the steps in voting, you know, how do you go about voting. This is what they want. They don't want it's not so much as the campaigning, but it will be useful if TikTok can be used to help them prepare themselves as first-time voters. That is what they're actually shared with me during my studies with young people.
Dr. Haryati, thank you for weighing in, of course, to highlight as well that the youth are looking for that personal touch, the one-on-one communication, that on-ground engagement, and not just a virtual election. Thanks for highlighting that, and thanks for speaking to us. We'll connect with you very soon. Well, of course, in the studio with us is LIYANA MARZUKI. Thank you so much for staying here and being with us.
I picked up on a few things that I think is very important as to what she said. So she's talking about platforms like TikTok coming out to educate the younger people about what they're voting for. Most of them are going and voting, and political parties take advantage of the situation, making it seem. Some of them make it seem like, okay, this is a party, let's just go enjoy ourselves and cast your votes. But you really need to know what you're casting your vote for. And I think voter education now, if you want someone to represent you, what qualities are you looking for in that person? Can they tell, especially with the younger generation, with the 18-year-olds, they look at this list or the smorgasbord of people who are put out as candidates. As Sabahans, what do they actually want? I guess my question here is, do the young people have the finger on the pulse with regards to knowing who's what, and not which clan I'm voting for, or which group I'm voting for, because the individuals in the end make the difference.
Right.
Yeah. I'm talking too much.
Yeah.
I know that.
No, we have a time constraint, so we've got a couple of minutes left.
All right, sure. So I think when we, came out in the 18th, it's good. It's a good policy. It's a good law, but we are not prepared in terms of political advocacy and political literacy for our youth.
Right.
I think that's my position, because if you want to have that right has to be equipped with right knowledge, right empowerment, and I think that's the gap. You have that rights, you have that power to vote, but you do not know the parameters or the criteria for you to vote your leaders. And this has been taken, by the politicians and party politics to do propaganda, to do the race and racial sentiments and narrative. And we are back in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
The politics will be always race and religion, identity politics, which is not good.
Mm-hmm. So they're taking advantage of that gap they see there, which is the lack of knowledge with regards to how to pick a candidate. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think my advocacy on Facebook and also on our podcast is jangan pajak tak, don't pawn your brain. You need to know the facts. You don't sway easily with propaganda. Get the facts right, facts check. And also the parameters for good leaders are delivery. And you have to know, there's a saying, politician thinks about the next election. Statesmen thinks about the next generation. You have to find statements. You don't have to find bangsawan or agamawan, because you want to bina negara here. Mm-hmm. We want to build a nation. So you have to find statements quality in your candidate.
We're about 6 or 7 hours away from the results. What EC has told us is that the results of Sabah polls today can be known as early as 10 p.m. if everything is smooth flowing. But I do want to bring the conversation a little about hung assembly. No coalition is expected to win outright today, making post-election alliances the decisive factor. How do you see this panning out?
I believe we have that experience before during PRU 15. It takes days to make sure that whoever appointed have that majority vote to form government and to become chief minister. And I think Sabahans needs to know that not necessarily the biggest winner will form, the leader of the government or leader of the big coalition. It can be someone which is, with lesser winning, but still get that magic number. And the last point is that the role of TYT also is very important, because TYT will, be proposed the name, and TYT also will decide. So the relationship between parties and TYT also play a major role.
Well, this outcome is going to serve as an indicator of the PMX or Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's influence in Sabah, and it can also influence what happens for the rest of the country moving forward, especially in the next GE as well. How do you see that? Do you see this as a litmus test of Prime Minister Anwar's influence and the confidence of the people in his leadership?
Also stewardship, I think.
Stewardship,
yeah.
I think Sabah has a very unique political climate, and it's not the same as the rest of the country. And I don't think it's the right litmus test to say that if he cannot, his party or his coalition cannot win in Sabah, meaning to say he won't win in PRU 15. I think that's different altogether, different dynamic. But of course, what we want to see is post-election, how he want to moderate the formation of the government, because at the federal level we have all parties together with the UG unity government. How he wants to cooperate at the state level if let's say Warisan take over from GRS. So we want to see that kind of leadership coming from him.
Right. So I think just to wrap this up very quickly, how much will this affect the next general elections here in Malaysia? How much of this will play into the movement of the next PRU here in Malaysia?
people will try to gauge the influence and the impact of national parties. For example, the performance of Pakatan Harapan and Perikatan Nasional, how would they perform now, and how can they bring that as a narrative to unite the country during PRU 15. So it's also, to the certain extent, this will be the training ground for them to test their influence later in PRU 15 and whether or not they can take over from the unity government, coalition
later. It'll be an interesting next couple of hours, and although the hung assembly is anticipated or expected, we will have to see how things fold out later. Well, today's vote will determine if Sabah chooses continuity or change. LIYANA, thank you very much for spending so much time with us right here as we come to you live unpacking the 17th Sabah state elections.
Very quickly, later on this evening we'll be having back-to-back news bulletins and also the results till late. Wan Sharina is going to be at the helm with, of course, Taufik Rahman, and they will be, or Taufik Isa to be exacting, they will be walking you through the results later on this evening and also having subject matter experts in the studio right here on Bernama TV, giving you the latest in Sabah's elections or Sabah's big day out.
That's right. 8:30 p.m. onwards, you want to get that remote and tune in to Bernama TV. Live coverage, expert insights, as well as the latest results coming to you live. Now, weather conditions are changing rapidly across the country, and of course, staying ahead has never been more important. Don't get caught off guard by the weather. Do download My Cuaca app to get the latest weather forecasts, early warnings in your area, as well as real-time updates at your fingertips. Of course, there's always Google Play and App Store. You can find that there. And for the latest in the state polls, to visit Bernama's microsite that we've created specially for the elections. It's bringing you the latest
Just very
information.
quickly, for those of you doing good work out there, NGOs going out there and helping people, thank you so much from all of us here at Bernama for the great work you guys are doing out there.
And all the best, Sabah. We hope we've done you justice by highlighting the important key bread and butter issues and getting the insights from our expert panelists and speakers today. See you later. Bye-bye.